That was a bigger clash than I expected. I feel like in many ways I don't fully fit in Iceland anymore. You have some small Czech word, and I need a whole sentence in Icelandic to describe it.
Hey, it's Xuksu, Prague Expat Stories. I actually have a first question before introducing anything else about the podcast do you remember your first ever day in Prague?
My first ever day in Prague was long before I ever thought I would move here. I was 17 or 18 and I went on like a school trip. It was like an exchange program thing. And we went to this little town called Přerov in like northeast Czech Republic. And we went for one day in Prague and I really liked it. But that was my first day ever in Prague. Yeah. Or do you mean the first day when I lived here?
I'm interested in both, but yeah, so you were 17, and what was your first impression of the Czech Republic?
I like it. I just thought it was very cool. But of course, I mean, we were in this town, Přerov, which has a lot of the Soviet vibes. I'm sorry, I don't mean to offend anybody that's from there, but at least that was my impression as a person from Iceland coming to see this. But then, of course, coming to Prague and seeing just these beautiful houses and everything was, I don't know, I really liked it. But then, years later, I met a Czech boy who I thought was very handsome, who is now my husband. And with him, my first day was very nice. When my first day living here was the day we moved here, and he proposed to me, and it was a very good day, I have to say. It was a very good day. So you cannot ask such deep questions immediately. No, I'm kidding.
Welcome to the first Xuksu podcast. I'm really eager to meet Adda today, which is from Iceland and who's an opera singer here in Prague. We will first talk about your job in details and then how you think you fit in the Czech Republic, what were some of your experiences since you live here, and how it is to live away from Iceland. Do you want to introduce yourself a little bit more?
Yes, I'm Adda, or Arnheiður Eiríksdóttir, which is so easy for everyone to say. All the Czechs just love my name. And I'm an opera singer who's been living here for 5 years and singing at the National Theater here. And I'm married to a Czech guy called Lukáš Barak, and who is also a singer working at the National Theater.
So you actually met him outside of Czech Republic?
Yes, we were both studying in Vienna, and that's where we started dating, and then we moved together to Germany, and then somehow during COVID we landed here.
Okay, nice. So do you want to tell a bit more about how you got into opera?
It was all like everything in my life. I'm not the kind of person that like plans 3 steps ahead. I'm the one that things happen and I go with it. And just that was exactly this, because I wanted to become a pianist. So I was always playing piano, and then I started singing in a choir, and then I realized it's much more fun to sing than to play, mainly because when you sing, you get to be with people. When you play and practice, you're always just alone in a room, and that was not something that was good for me, at least. And then I started to study singing, and I got a role in like the music school opera kind of thing. It was like a newly composed Icelandic history stuff. And just the first moment I walked on stage, I just felt like this, and I just thought in that moment, I never want to do anything but like this feeling I wanted to be always.
And so how old were you?
I was, I guess, 18, 19.
Okay.
But this was just like, I was not super even into opera like from the outset. I had sang some like art songs, and I was very much into church music, and I had sang very much in a choir and stuff like this. But because in Iceland we don't have, and it's 350, the population is 350,000. So you don't have so much opera. You don't have so many opportunities to see real big shows. Back then now we don't anymore, but back then we still had the Icelandic opera. So there will be at least 1 or 2 productions I could see a year. But really to get to know the greatness of it and how amazing opera can be, I didn't really get to know that until I moved to Vienna. Which is very strange, but yeah.
Are there any like famous Icelandic opera singers that we would know, or?
I doubt that you would know them. But we have some singers that have really been on international stages, but I don't think any of them are like the kind that would be like pop culture, like would be known. There's no Icelandic Pavarotti or something like this.
I just searched on ChatGPT this afternoon, like how many professional opera singers there is in the world. And I don't know if ChatGPT is saying it right or wrong, but I think they said like around 10,000 opera singers in the world.
Really? Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me, but because it feels like a small world. Usually, when you work with somebody, you end up working with them again or somebody they worked with. It feels like a very small community. You always work with the same people again somehow, but not 10,000. But it's, I guess it's possible. I don't know, because many people say it's like a dying art form because it's past its prime. It's now competing with the short attention span of people. And you've come to see a couple of my shows at least. And you need patience it's a slow burn art form.
Yeah.
So you need patience for it, which is not exactly the strength of the modern society.
For me either. What you're saying about like attention span, my colleague is always laughing at me that I'm the worst and I really need to train. But so I was seeing you at the opera last week, and for some reason, so you have this first part that's like maybe an hour, then you have a break, and then you have a second part that's an hour and a half. And it felt 20 minutes, to be honest, like this next part. And the curtain went down, and I was like, oh my God, is it over?
You just think that because it was in French and you like it. No,
Maybe.
no. I don't know. I really love that opera, Werther, that we are now showing in Arnheiður Eiríksdóttir. It's so much drama and I enjoy. That's a good one. But I have this feeling very often. It doesn't feel long to me. If it's done, opera is very often done because it's such a complicated thing. You need so many elements to go right. You need the staging, you need the costumes, you have the orchestra, and so many things have to be perfectly aligned for this to work. So it happens very often that you go to an opera performance and you expect it to be amazing, but actually one of these elements are off, and that is enough for you to lose contact with it.
Yeah, makes sense because you actually mentioned you studied singing in Austria, but I guess there's all this drama part like theater and maybe dance. I don't know.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's all connected. In my opinion, it's all like different sides of the same thing, all of the stage arts. It's all supposed to be entertainment and all supposed to be something that moves you. And at least for me personally, even when I'm in the audience, I think the opera is the best at that because it somehow, through the singing and through the human voice, it really touches something special in you. At least for me, this is like watching an opera that is well performed and you're just crying. And it's not even in the sad parts for me. It's just feeling the power of this orchestra plus somebody who has a perfectly trained instrument that is able to move something in you. To use a human voice can never be louder than this orchestra because we are using frequencies that are actually the same ones that kids use when they cry. Like you're using resonances that are very primal. And I think that's at least why, I guess, if I try to analyze why at least this moves me so much, I guess it's really just something deep within you. But you have to really take your time and calm yourself down to be able to accept it. Because obviously this is not as easy as a short video of a dog falling. I don't know.
But is it never, I don't know how many representation you do of one show, but is it never repetitive? Is it always different? Because like, for example, you go to the theater play, you have maybe the public is laughing and there's claps more regularly, but at an opera, you really don't know until the end and people like stand up and clap. So you don't get anything from the public.
I don't think you don't get anything. I feel like I always feel it if we have the audience or not. I feel like I always feel if I have the attention of the audience or not while I'm on stage. Which is a very strange voodoo thing to say, but you just feel it the air feels thick when you have the atmosphere of the people, and you feel, at least for me, I feel like all my movements are slower because I feel how there are like 1,000 eyes on the hand that I'm lifting. Wow. And it's a very weird feeling, but it's a very clear feeling. So when people are distracted, if it's like Tuesday night, everybody had a long day at work and you feel that there is just no energy in the room, then it's very difficult to try to do so many shows in a row. We usually have 2 shows in this month and then we have a month off and then we do 2 or 3 shows there. So it doesn't become as repetitive. When I was singing in Cologne, we had more of these, like we would rehearse and then we would have 15 shows and sometimes 2 per day. We would then be doing children's operas, and we would be doing like every day, 6 days in a row, 1 or 2 shows per day. And then that would sometimes feel like you were just on autopilot working through the movements. But you still always have this energy, and you just have to find a way for your character to experience it for the first time every time you do it. I guess that's but it doesn't always work, obviously. It's life, things go wrong.
That's crazy. I can't imagine how you feel the audience. I wish I would be able to like feel it as you do. I guess my next question is, so last October you got an award from the International Rising Star Award of the Opera.
The awards are called the International Opera Awards, and it's like the most currently respected. And there you have Singer of the Year, Opera House of the Year, Set Designer of the Year, everything. And there they have this category of the Rising Star or the Young Artist. And I got that prize, and I'm still a bit shocked by it myself, but but very happy.
Did you know you were nominated, or it's just one day you get a call and they're like, oh, you're a rising star?
I got a call actually from my agent. She called me, and I was also nominated as Singer of the Year in the Czech Republic. But I won that last year, so I was nominated again this year. And my agent called me and was like, oh my God, congratulations on your nomination. And I was like, I was announced a month ago, but thank you. I thought we had already talked about it. And as it turns out, we figured out in the middle of that phone call, because we were debating on which date it was. Then in the middle of the phone call, I realized she was not talking about the same nomination I was. No, so that's how I found out. I was actually, with our friend Hugo. We were out having drinks in the sun. No, I had no idea. And this was not something I had ever even considered to be my goal, because I thought this was so far out of reach for me, if that makes sense.
I didn't know you had an agent.
Yes.
How does that work?
No, she handles my contracts, and when people want to hire me for a project, they either contact her, or they contact me and I give them the contact to her. It just makes everything more smooth, because I am not a good business person. So it's very good to have somebody who is better at that. And also it's very nice to have a buffer when it comes to the money side of things, because it feels very strange to debate your salary with somebody that you are then supposed to be working intimately with on an artistic project. So it's very good to have somebody else take care of all of that.
And is she Czech?
She's Czech, but I'm actually in the process of switching agencies right now. We're adding on another agency. So he will be taking care of my international things, while she will be more taking care of the Czech Republic. So that's the current situation.
So do you have to be like because you depend, I don't know if it's the right word, you depend from the Prague National Theater, but you can take projects abroad?
Yes, but I have a contract with the National Theater that I will be there and available for their projects. Which means that when, for example, today I got an offer for a project that's next year in April, I cannot say, yes, I want to do this, even though I would love to do that project. I have to first ask, will you release me, or do you have some projects for me in this time frame? And they have to actually sign a vacation time for me to do the other projects. But they are very kind to me here. When I was in Germany, they are much more. They sometimes just don't let you go because they don't want you to sing with the competition. But here they see it more as increasing the reputation of the house, that you are singing in more places. And the more you sing, the more you get known, and the more you are known, it's better for the house. And that's the way they see it here, at least. But not, But they have dibs, if you can say that. They have first, if they say you're supposed to sing on the 23rd of April, and then I have to keep that date available for them. And for that, they pay me like I'm a state employee here in the Czech Republic.
Okay, and is there many of you?
Yes, I think it's quite a big ensemble. I think we're like 35 soloists, maybe, but I might be very wrong. But some sing more than others. Some have been there for a long time, and there are also some that have the old communist contracts that just cannot be fired no matter what, almost. But which would be very nice, because at least for us that came later on, we have 3 years at a time, which is very fun to deal with when you're trying to get a mortgage and stuff, that you always have a contract that's ending. But that's how it is. At least it's better here than in many other countries where you always just get 1 year at a time.
Yeah, 1 year is
1 year
short time.
It's a very short time. It happens very fast. But But we always get prolonged like 3 years.
Nice. And so coming back to the award, I read that it was thanks to your very versatile set of skills, which means like you're able to play like drama and comedy. And I even remember maybe you can play some male roles as well, right?
Yeah.
Do you have any favorite role or a favorite language to sing in?
Yes, I like singing in German, but that's maybe just because I like the German style of music and also because I speak it and that makes it easier. But that being said, I really, for example, this Werther that you saw, I like singing in French. I like the melody of the language and everything, but it's just difficult for me because I don't have a feeling for the flow of the language the same way I have it in, say, German or English. But I think I'm more of a drama queen, I think. I'm in a couple of comedies and stuff, but I don't enjoy myself as much. I feel like it's much more difficult doing a good comedy than a good drama. In the drama, you can just, at least for me, in the drama, you can just put all your emotions into it and all your feelings, and that somehow comes out, for me at least, because with the music together, it happens by itself. I don't know. But with a comedy, it has to be so precisely rehearsed with your colleagues that the jokes work, because you're always trying to get some slapstick comedy into it and stuff like this. And that's a very delicate thing to do with the timing of the music. But I love watching it, but I just think it's, more work for less glory, if that makes sense.
More work for
Glory. Like you have to put a lot into it, but people don't fully love it as much. But that being said, the most popular shows we have are more comedies. So I don't know. And maybe about this playing boys, I could say something more. I really like playing boys because that's the roles we play as singers. It's not just the type how we look and stuff. It's also just the instrument that we have. Because your Fach, it's called in German like terminology. It's what kind of roles you sing in which like vocal range and how it is written, like how much time you spend on the high notes versus how much you go to the low notes versus how quick your voice can move, how quickly your voice can move from between the pitches. And my voice happens to be the kind of voice that they write a lot of male roles for, which is a very funny thing. But I suppose it's more, the question is, which is more believable? Young woman wearing like a wig and pants, or I don't know, fat tenor? Who is more believable as a 15-year-old? I guess it's the same logic as in cartoons. You usually have girls, it's usually women speaking for young boys in Disney movies and stuff. So I guess it's the same logic. But many people think that these pants roles were originally written for countertenors or castrati, but with the ones that I'm singing, it's not the case. It was really written for women because the composers believed that they would be more believable in these roles, which is a very funny thing, but I really enjoy playing them because I feel sometimes that they are more juicy, like the characters. And now we come to very much the sexism in opera. I find female characters are very often more superficial. And for example, the character Octavian that I sang in Rosenkavalier last year, which is opera by Strauss, he, for example, his emotional life and how his text is thought through and his emotional everything is so clearly set up that it's much easier to sell it than if you're handed the role of a woman that is actually quite just a mirror to all of the emotions of all the men around her very often. Whereas when you play a boy, you are the one that everybody's reacting. And it's a very funny thing to get to stand in both positions.
Actually, that brings me to what's your favorite part of your job and what's the worst part of working in opera?
Obviously, I like standing on the stage and feeling the energy from the audience, as we were saying before. And I love learning the roles. I love learning the music and getting to know it and the work in the practice room, because most of the time our work is not standing on stage or being on rehearsal. It's the work we do alone or with a pianist in the room. And I really love that part, the getting to know a character for the first time, getting to know the music, figuring out how that character feels about everything that he's saying. I love that. I love that part of the work.
For example, this new show, how long did you take to prepare it?
That one was an exception because it was a last-minute change in the repertoire. It was supposed to be Faust by Gounod, so another Goethe story. But in the end, they switched it to this, and they told me in the end of November that they would do this switch, and they asked if I could learn it in these 2 months, which I decided to dare to do, even though I was on other projects. So I only had, 2.5 months to learn it, and yeah. But it turned out to be enough, and I really enjoyed this, to read the book, to get into the mind of this crazy character. But the time you have is always... It's not like I'm sitting every day from 9 to 5 working on this. Very often I find with work like this, it's very good to do it intensively and then put it to the side, and then your mind keeps working on it, and then get back to it.
And so, for example, a project you worked on 4 years ago, would you be able to do it tomorrow again?
I think I would be able to do the music part of it, yes. I would be able to sing most of it, because the voice remembers, the mouth, if that makes sense. Like, the tongue knows the next word if you release yourself into the music. But the staging, I think I would struggle. Remembering where to go, remembering exactly when to pick up the cup and stuff like this, which is very often very choreographed. I think I would struggle with that after a long time. I always, when I have revival, or always when I have a show after it's been off for a while, I always play the whole thing in my living room before I do it on stage again. Which my husband loves. No?
Neighbors.
Or my neighbors especially.
Competition. So you're saying you're like 35 soloist at the Prague Opera. How are you chosen for a role, and how do you avoid drama?
I have managed to avoid drama because it's 35 of us, but we're not all competing for the same roles, because we have the different voice types. We have the sopranos and the tenors so obviously I am only competing with other mezzo-sopranos, but even we have different strengths. Obviously, they have different physical attributes or different characteristics, which make them more likely to be chosen for these kinds of roles, and I get chosen for those kinds of roles that fit us. But generally, to avoid competition, we don't make the decisions. So trying to compete with each other is, in my opinion, completely pointless. And very often you are sharing the same role. So you have more than one singer who is singing in the same production at the same time. And at least for me, and I'm very lucky that the girl who is sharing most of the roles with me feels the same. If we would be in competition, and if we would be not nice to each other, that would be very stupid, because in the end, I'm the one she needs if she gets sick, if she wants to switch her shows around because she has something. We are each other's most important colleagues, so to waste our time and energy on being in competition with each other when we are not the one doing the casting decisions is very pointless, in my opinion.
So let's say Werther has 10 shows right now. So you split and you do 5 each with this girl?
Now we have 7, I do 4, and she does 3. But she is also returning to the role. Like, she already did this production before.
All right, complete switch of subjects. Are there many people from Iceland in Prague or in the Czech Republic in general? I don't think I've met one, apart from you.
There are. There's a surprising amount, yes. Because we have an honorary consulate here, and she is very good at getting us all together and trying to meet for drinks to keep some kind of society here. And I think there are, okay, yes, I say many, but considering it's Iceland, okay. But I think it's like 30, 40 people. Okay, so not speaking to a French person, I guess that's not a lot of people. But considering how small Iceland is, it's still a lot.
Prague is pretty small too.
Yes, yeah. But you would probably know the Arctic Bakery, for example.
Yes.
That's an Icelandic company.
Created by
An Icelandic baker or Icelandic bakers that found that, I think how long has it been there? I'm not sure.
Probably.
Yeah, probably a couple of years. Yeah, I think so. I think it was there before I moved here for sure. No, but they are wonderful people with a passion for baking, and I can only use this opportunity to advertise the Arctic Bakery, because they bake it's so good. Because it's maybe not nice, but I don't like Czech baked goods. You agree?
I would say it got better in the 6 years I've been here. Like, now there's so many bakeries and they're trying different kind of breads. Like, I remember my first year in Prague, I could only find bread with kmin in it. I don't know in English. Kmin.
Cumin? Yeah, maybe.
Or caraway seeds. Caraway seeds, maybe. I don't know. Okay, yeah.
But anyway, so I think It's improved so much, but to me, the best baguette is still the one you find in Lidl.
Interesting. That's interesting.
Yeah, yeah. And another interesting thing, talking about bakery, actually, another guest I want to have on this podcast is a guy from Venezuela who also opened a bakery here and has an interesting story. So we'll talk about bakeries more on this podcast, definitely.
No, but it's also just, it's not so much about the quality of bread. It's just the style of baking. All of these little zakuski or whatever they're called. My husband is obsessed with them. Because they just opened like a Moravian bakery across the street from us. And he's from Wallachia, he's from Moravia. And he is just obsessed. And I'm very happy that he always brings these things at home, but they don't interest me at all. And it always has this tvarog. I cannot deal with the tvarog. They sneak it into, I always think it's going to be buttercream or something delicious, but it's always
Yeah, I have the same feeling because recently I discovered in my company, JetBrains, every Wednesday we have Chlebíčky. And when I read about this, when I joined the company, I was like, I have no interest in this. Let me skip it because I've never met nice Chlebíčky before, but it exists. And the ones in my company, they're doing so good. So there are a few places and catering companies that do make good ones. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe, I don't know. But I love Chlebíčky. I wouldn't call it, I love them. I eat like a šunkový chlebíček almost every day. With the coffee. I like it with the potato salad. Yes. And the like egg and then the big mountain of mayonnaise on the side. I like that, but I'm talking about the like sweet bakeries.
Have you experienced a big Czech tradition or myth, I would say? How can I say this? Like the Christmas meal here in Czech Republic where you have carp and potato salad, like all expats, I guess it's their worst nightmare because I haven't had the opportunity to, but I guess I'm glad, but maybe you'll change my mind on it.
I don't know, at least because I've experienced Czech Christmas with my parents-in-law, but they usually switch the carp out for chicken schnitzel, which is very nice. But they have this potato salad, which I actually really like this Christmas potato salad because they put like sausages in it, and the way my mother-in-law does it is really good. But I once tried the carp, but it was like day-old leftovers from like the other side of the family that they brought so that I could taste it. So I guess I cannot really judge it because it's in, how do you say, the panierung? It's in the like the breading, and the breading was already soggy. So I guess you cannot really judge it. But the fact that somebody would put breading on fish that still has the bones in it is a big mystery to me. Coming from a nation that eats a lot of fish, and we had fish in breading, fish schnitzels, like weekly when I was growing up, and I would never imagine having bones in it. That just seems like a health risk.
Yes. Any other bad experience here since you lived in the Czech Republic or something you would like to change? Maybe not about the food, but something else?
I don't know. I wish the language would be easier. If that's something you can wish for, it's really difficult.
Yeah, it's very difficult. I'm still trying. I'm always saying I'm never leaving this country without being bilingual, so that I will be here a few more years, that's for sure. But yeah, it's terrible, the grammar. Otherwise, it's fine. I like the vocabulary, just the grammar is terrible.
But I feel like it's like always a moving target. When I came here, what I wanted to do was just to be able to say something. And then I was able to say something and function. But the more I speak, the more I realize it's also the beauty of it is that it's a very rich language. And it has a very big vocabulary and very specific words. I meet this again and again when I'm working poems and in the opera, that you have some small Czech word and I need a whole sentence in Icelandic to describe it because they have a very complicated vocabulary. And I feel as I'm able to have like daily conversations, I keep missing the mark on this thing with the vocabulary, at least. And I'm not even starting to talk about the grammar.
Yeah. Whenever I ask a question to my friends, I'm like, oh, I've seen this in my lesson. How would you explain it to me? They're like, oh, you could explain it this way or this way. There's never like one answer. So you ask different people, you get different answers. So that's challenging. Do you have a favorite Czech word?
Oh, I don't think so. Wait, I had one. I do. Okay, what is it?
Mine is blbost.
Blbost is a good one.
which means stupid. It sounds so cute, but it says stupid, so I just love it.
That's a good one. I don't think I have. No.
So worst experience, we've said the language.
But I feel like also on the language thing, and speaking of a moving target, now that I feel like I am able to function in like my passive understanding, or at least when it's my turn to speak, I always feel like I lose my words and everything. But when I'm at the table and everybody's speaking Czech, I'm keeping up with the conversation finally. But now the next moving target is that then you have some Slovaks there. And they always speak Slovak. And all the Czechs, or at least the Czechs who are around me, all understand it without problems. And I'm always there again. And they are always the funny ones who are saying all the jokes. So they say these long jokes in Slovak, and I'm like, okay, I understand you. And then they say the punchline, which is some slang Slovak words. And everybody laughs, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Maybe
Tak nic.
I'm still like this in Czech because I think I'm a level under you and there's a table full of Czech. I really try to concentrate and focus, and you can tell they're saying a joke and you're like, okay, I get this word, but I can't put it all together. And sometimes I'm like, oh, this is what they're explaining. And then in the end, it's a totally different story. So I make my own story in my head and I'm just happy with it.
I do the same. Oh, I do the same. And then they ask, did you understand everything? And I'm like, I think I did. And sometimes I tell them back and it's not the same. Yeah.
If you could relive one of your day here in Prague, which one would it be?
Oh, I have no idea. No, I don't think so. Do you have one?
Yes and no. We talked with my friends about it. I was like, inspire me, please. And I couldn't think of anything, but we all agree it's like the small moments. It's not really like a specific day. So you just walk around, it's spring weather and around the castle or something. And you're like, oh, I'm so lucky to be here. I remember as well, like the Prague during COVID, like it was so empty and we were so lucky to be able to walk around. Like other countries had like very tough restrictions. So yeah, small moments like this, or in the summer where you bike with your friends and you just end up having drinks on Naplavka or anywhere else. Yeah.
No, that's true. No, but I feel the same. I feel like I've had so many beautiful moments with friends here. It's so...
And you did get married here.
I did. That was a pretty good day. That was a good day, I have to say.
What about Czech weddings and Icelandic weddings?
That was a bigger clash than I expected. Because when we were planning the wedding, we were always talking about these, because we decided to do like a hybrid, like you do. And my husband was always talking about these games that would happen. And I was always talking about the speeches and the stuff that would happen while people were sitting. And he didn't understand when we would do the thing that I did. And I didn't understand when people were supposed to play the games because we had the day planned out. And then the day came. And then we understood what the other one meant. We seated all the people, one half was Icelandic, one half was Czech. And just immediately after people ate, they just left the room, the Czechs. And the Icelanders were sitting there because in Icelandic weddings, I think it's more similar to the French style. That you usually just sit until you're excused. Yes. Whereas the Czechs, it's at least, at least the way my husband's family and friends are, but it was also a warm day. It's just free for all. And that's when they were playing the games. So we spent a lot of the wedding day trying to herd the Czechs back into the room for the speeches, while the Icelanders was like, hey, so is something happening? So that was one of the hurdles we met that we didn't. The funny thing is neither of us saw it coming because neither of us could imagine a wedding that was not the way all the weddings we had attended would be, which was a funny thing.
Yeah. Yeah. That comes back to the Christmas story. Like same in France, we sit for hours at the Christmas dinner table, and in Czech Republic, you just eat, and once you've eaten, you're out, basically.
Exactly. And you watch this movie, but it's very cute. This is how we spent now last Christmas, like eating, opening the presents, and you're done with that at 9, which is when we are like starting the main fish in Iceland, usually. No, and you watch this nice movie. And it's also a nice thing. But I don't know. I prefer the Icelandic style.
All right. What more could we say about life in Prague?
Maybe about getting to know Czech people.
Oh, yeah.
That's a good one, actually. All right. How do you know them?
Yeah. I was gonna say, how many Czech people do you know? But you have a Czech husband, so you probably know more than the average expat.
Because I've heard many, especially the Icelanders I know here, say that they don't really have any Czech friends because the Czechs are similar to the Icelanders, actually, that you have to be invited in by somebody. You have to have a Czech person to pull you into a Czech group or to be in a Czech workplace or something like this. And I am both. So I feel like most of my friends here are actually Czechs, which is very funny because when I lived both in Germany and Austria, I had mainly like expat friends. But I feel very lucky to experience the Czech Republic through really the Czech eye. Because when I speak to many of my friends who live here who are not from here or who are not so much in contact with the Czechs, it's such a shame that they're missing a big part of it.
Yes. And I guess if it doesn't happen like in the beginning of your life in Prague, then you just keep living between expats, really. So you have to create these opportunities to meet, which can be tricky, but because I've met people that have been here 10 years and don't speak one word of Czech. And it's very weird to me. If you want to live here and enjoy the life here, you have to make a little bit of effort to adapt to the culture, to the language, or something.
But then it comes to it's your life. You're supposed to live it the way you want to. So are you obligated to? I don't think you have to. If you want to live in your little expat bubble, I don't know. I think they're missing an opportunity, personally. I would not want to do it like this. But I think people are also, do you owe it to anybody to behave in a certain way? Or are you allowed to live your life the way you want to, if you're happy? It's a beautiful city, whether you know the Czechs or not.
No, yeah. That's a fresh new perspective. But in my opinion, you have to be interested a tiny bit about it because maybe if it's not the language, it's the culture or history or something.
Yeah, that's true.
Actually, a good question is, do you feel at home here? Like, where is home?
I feel very much at home here, but it took me a while. I think it was, I felt at home here because I sometimes do also projects outside of the Czech Republic. So I live here most of the time, but then there's always 2 or 3 months out of the year when I'm working somewhere else. And I feel like you don't know this is your home until you've been away for a while and it feels like you're coming home to come back. And I think I didn't have that feeling until I had already been here like 2 years, I think. When I came home from Iceland, which was a very strange. I always talk about I go heiman heim, we say in Icelandic. I go from home to home when I travel between Iceland and the Czech Republic, which is a very strange feeling that I in many ways feel homesick in both places. And I feel at home in both places.
I never feel homesick here, but maybe it's because I go back to France like every 3 months. And that could be part of the equation. But yeah, same for me. It took probably 2 years, maybe more. Like, I think when I got my own place, when I'm not sharing an apartment with anyone anymore, or I feel like, okay, I'm only living with a suitcase. And so when I feel I can start buying stuff for my apartment. So yeah, it's gradual. But I think after 2 years, when you made your life here, friends, work, anything, but I still use the word home for my hometown in France.
Same. I always say, I'm flying home for Christmas.
Yes.
Which is funny But I feel like in Iceland, I love Iceland, but I have never been a grown-up in Iceland. I moved to Austria when I was 21, which means I never lived on my own in Iceland. I always just lived I lived until then with my parents, and so it's difficult to really compare, but then when you say you don't feel at home in France, really, I guess it's the same for me, because when I spend a longer time there, I usually also am staying with my parents, which always is, I love them. I love spending time with them and everything, but it's always a different thing when you're not in your own apartment. When you're in somebody's house, you revert back to somebody cooking for you and stuff like this, which is always a funny thing to revert to as an adult. But I feel like in many ways I don't fully fit in Iceland anymore, because Iceland has a very specific mentality. Okay. Because basically the nation, it's like a small town. Being such a small nation, everybody knows each other, everybody's related to each other, everybody's, in my opinion, competing for be it popularity or some status symbols or competing to have this expensive pillow on your thing or something. I feel like that is much more than here. I feel like here people are doing the best they can. Of course, people want to show that they own this nice car or something like this, but I feel like it's more in a more grounded way.
Interesting. I have this image of Icelandic people being like very simple in the positive term and close to nature. I wouldn't think of them as competitive or wanting to show up. Really interesting.
No, it's actually quite materialistic, much more than here, slightly more American, I would even say.
We'll try to get Americans on this podcast. Try to get everyone, yeah.
Try to get the perspective from everywhere. No, but I like this Czech way of always having plans on the weekend, or at least the Czechs who I surround myself with. I don't want to generalize about all Czechs, but the Czechs I have around me always have they're going on some výlet, they're always going on some trip for the weekend, or always have some plans for something. Whereas I feel like in Iceland, it's not as strong. It's more sitting at home doing nothing on the weekends or something like this.
Yeah, I think it's probably linked to the history of the country, where in the communism, like some travel were restricted, the travel permit. So the only thing they could do was have this chata somewhere outside the main city. I don't know. I just assume it was linked, and that's why the tradition kept going, that everyone has like a small house somewhere, because at some time they couldn't move away.
Well, that makes sense. It's cool.
So my idea to close this podcast is to ask you to make a wish. That's why we have a candle here, and I'm thinking, so you make a wish, you don't tell us what it is, and then you blow the candle, and I hope we can start a tradition of like where wishes you make on Xuxu podcast come true. You can come back in maybe, I don't know, 5 months, a year, 10 years, and tell me if your wish came true.
That's such a nice idea. Oh my God, I know exactly what I'm wishing. Yes. Okay, so may I?
Make a wish.
In my head, I'm not saying.
Perfect.
Yay!
All right.
So lovely.
Thank you, Hata. It was a pleasure to have you. You're the best first guest I could have wished for. And yeah, all the best in your future projects. If you haven't been to the Národní divadlo yet, just go and have a look. Plus, it's much nicer when you know who's on stage, and now you know Hata a little bit. So yeah, check it out. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. If you're still here, I think we can hope for around 30 views, because maybe 10 of my friends are gonna listen, maybe 10 of your friends. We have to start small, of course. If you enjoy the podcast, please share, subscribe, let us know in the comments if you have any other topics or ideas of guests. We've also opened the Buy Me Coffee edition if you want to support, so I can buy candies for the future guest. I've also just bought new mics because we had troubles, and if you noticed, sometimes my voice feels like I'm in the other room. So yeah, hopefully you still enjoyed the episode. So yeah, see you around for the next episode in a month.